Matteo was walking home from school one afternoon. He was lost in his thoughts. The tune he was humming was drowned out by the heavy traffic that rattled past. He lived in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. It was all he had ever known. Life in the big city was fast-paced. There was always something going on, and it felt like there was never any time to relax or take a break. Matteo's parents were always at work when he let himself into the apartment after school. He would kick off his shoes, sling his backpack on the floor and grab a snack from the refrigerator before settling down in front of the TV. But this afternoon was different. As Matteo was waiting to cross the busy main road, he spotted a stray cat looking up at him. He had seen lots of stray cats and dogs before. If you walked around the city after dark, there were hundreds of them roaming the streets, looking for scraps to eat and getting into fights with one another. Sometimes at night he would hear the barking from the dog or the occasional high-pitched yowl from a cat. Most people just ignored them. Occasionally they would toss them their leftover lunch, and some would kick out at them to shoo them away. It was a tough life for a stray in one of South America's busiest cities. Most didn't make it past a few years old, and many walked around with injuries from road traffic accidents. All of them were thin and undernourished, but that was the way things were. When Matteo looked into this cat's eyes, he felt sorry for the animal. He had never paid much attention to the strays before, but he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of sadness and responsibility. Maybe it was something to do with the tough day he had had at school. Whatever the reason, he knelt down on the sidewalk and the cat cautiously moved closer. Matteo took his backpack off his back and unzipped it. He had a half-eaten sandwich in there and a bottle of water. He pulled a small piece of bread from the sandwich and threw it at the cat's feet. It sniffed it and then gratefully gobbled it up. Matteo repeated this until the sandwich was all gone. The cat looked up for more. Matteo then took out his water bottle and squirted some water on the ground. Most of it dribbled away and disappeared between the cracks in the paving slabs, but a small amount pooled by the cat's feet, and it lapped it up. Just then the traffic stopped and everyone on the sidewalk began crossing the street. Matteo leapt up and did the same, but he glanced back over his shoulder to see the cat still looking at him. Matteo felt bad for leaving the animal and decided that the next day, if it was still there, he would buy it some proper cat food with his pocket money. It was the least he could do. He could feed it on the way to school every day. When he arrived at his apartment block, he climbed the stairs and then slumped down on the couch inside his home. But as he flicked through the TV channels, he couldn't stop thinking about the cat. There was something about its eyes that had got to him. It didn't just look lost and scared. It felt like there had been an instant connection between the two of them. Maybe he should have done more. Maybe he should have taken the cat to an animal shelter. After a few minutes, Matteo decided to head back out. His parents wouldn't be home for another 2 hours, so he decided to go and check on the cat. He walked back to the street where they had met. He didn't know what he was going to do if he found it again, but he desperately hoped it would still be there. He crossed the busy road and looked along the sidewalk on the other side, but there was no sign of the cat. Matteo's heart sank. He felt like he had somehow let the cat down. After wandering the sidewalk in both directions, he gave up. He turned around and headed back for home, but as he waited to cross the road again, the cat reappeared. Matteo couldn't believe his eyes. It was definitely the same little cat, and it immediately trotted over to him. Matteo knelt down once again, and this time held his hand out to stroke it. The cat closed its eyes as Matteo ran his fingers through its fur. It was softer than it looked, and Matteo smiled at the little animal, feeling the warmth of its fur. Then, without thinking, Matteo scooped it up and walked home with it. He didn't know what he was going to say to his parents, but somehow he talked them and around, and the rest, as they say, is history. But that's not where the story ends. Miraculously, the cat repaid Matteo for his kindness a few years later. Matteo had named the cat Bella, and she quickly became part of the family. She was always there when he returned home from school and would come trotting to the door when Matteo's key turned in the lock. Now Matteo had a companion whilst he waited for his parents to come home. They would sit watching TV together, Bella on Matteo's lap. They would play games together, and Matteo would teach her tricks. They were the best of friends. One night, whilst Matteo and his parents slept, there was a quiet crack in the kitchen. Seconds later, a spark ignited, and some wires caught fire behind the stove. In a few short minutes, the fire had erupted and was spewing out from behind the oven and spreading throughout the kitchen. Matteo was fast asleep, oblivious to the imminent danger. There were no smoke detectors in the apartment and no fire alarms, but they did have Bella. Always alert, she had smelt the smoke at the very first spark. She ran into Matteo's room and jumped up onto his bed. Her light footsteps weren't enough to wake him, so instead she licked his face and pawed his hair. Moments later, Matteo woke up. Bleary-eyed, he sat up. The cat was just inches from his face, her eyes fixed on his. She let out a meow and continued to paw at him. Matteo asked Bella what the matter was. She never normally disturbed him at night. Occasionally, she curled up at the foot of his bed, but usually slept on the couch in the living room. He could tell straight away that something was up. He rubbed his eyes and climbed out of bed. Bella jumped down and trotted out of the room before glancing back over her shoulder. She wanted Matteo to follow her. When Matteo walked into the kitchen, he was shocked. There was now an inferno threatening to burn the entire place down. Matteo could feel the intensity of the heat. He could see the flames engulfing the kitchen. It was a terrifying sight. He cried out and ran to his parents' room, shouting at them to wake up. Matteo scooped up Bella in his arms, and they all ran out of the apartment and down the stairs to the street below before the fire and smoke consumed them. They managed to call the emergency services, and the fire was put out before spreading to the other apartments in the block. It had been a terrifying ordeal for the family, and Bella had undoubtedly saved their lives. From that moment on, Matteo knew that was the reason he went back for the stray cat all those years ago. His act of kindness had ultimately saved their lives. He always knew that there was something special about Bella, and that they shared an unbreakable bond. Tragically, only a year later, Bella developed cancer and died. There was nothing anyone could do for her, and it happened so quickly. Matteo was heartbroken, but he knew that he had given her the very best life he could have. He had taken her off the streets and given her a loving family and a warm and secure home. He never looked at stray animals in the same way again. He spent his vacations volunteering in an animal shelter, showing his love and affection for the homeless animals that stayed there. They may have been rejected by people time and time again, but give them half a chance and they may end up being the most loyal pet you will ever come across. An animal that has never known love nor kindness can forgive easily and show its appreciation for its new owner in the most unimaginable way.